When did you realize your coach cared more about winning than your life? I was on the football field during Coach Brennan's practice when the heat index hit 105 degrees Fahrenheit and there wasn't a cloud in the sky. The sun felt like it was burning straight through my helmet and sweat was pouring down my face faster than I could wipe it away. We'd been running drills nonstop for 2 hours without a single water break and guys were starting to stumble. Jordan collapsed first, right in the middle of a sprint drill. He went down hard, face first into the artificial turf that was so hot you could see heat waves rising from it. When he tried to get up, his legs buckled and he fell again. "Coach, I need water," he gasped, his face bright red and covered in sweat. Coach Brennan blew his whistle and marched over, his face twisted with disgust. "Water breaks are for quitters. The regional championship is in 3 weeks and Roosevelt Academy has been practicing in this same heat all summer. You think they're taking water breaks? You think they're lying on the ground crying?" He pointed at Jordan, still struggling to stand. "Get up and run it again." The temperature gauge on the school's digital sign read 103 degrees Fahrenheit, but on the black artificial turf, it felt like 120 degrees Fahrenheit. My cleats were actually getting hot through my socks. Austin started dry heaving near the goalpost, but when he raised his hand to ask for a break, Coach Brennan made him run an extra lap as punishment. "Your generation thinks everything should be handed to you on a silver platter. Back when I played, we practiced until we puked, then kept going. That's what made us champions." By the third hour, half the team was showing obvious signs of heat exhaustion. Caleb's speech was slurred, and he kept stumbling during simple drills he'd done 1,000 times. Noah's face had gone from red to pale white, and he was barely sweating anymore, which I knew from health class was a dangerous sign. When Trevor sat down on the sideline without permission, Coach Brennan made him do bear crawls across the entire field while the rest of us watched. "Coach, this is dangerous," I said, my voice hoarse from the heat. "Guys are getting heat stroke symptoms." He spun around and got right in my face, so close I could smell his coffee breath. "You questioning my methods? I've been coaching for 20 years. I know what champions look like, and it's not a bunch of babies whining about being hot." His face was red with anger, and veins bulged in his neck. "Roosevelt Academy beat us by 2 touchdowns last year because they were tougher than us. This is how we get tougher." That's when Mason collapsed completely. Not just stumbled or sat down, but fell backward like someone had cut his strings. His eyes rolled back and his body started convulsing. Foam came out of his mouth, and his skin was burning hot to the touch when I knelt beside him. "He's having a seizure," I yelled. "Someone call 911 right now." Coach Brennan pushed me away from Mason. "Nobody's calling anyone. He's faking it to get attention." But Mason wasn't faking anything. His whole body was rigid and shaking, and the foam coming from his mouth was pink with blood where he'd bitten his tongue. His temperature felt like touching a stove. Other players started backing away, scared by what they were seeing, but Coach Brennan just stood there insisting it was all an act. "Look at his skin," Ethan said, his voice shaking. "He's burning up. This isn't fake." Coach Brennan's response was to blow his whistle and order everyone back into formation. "Ignore the drama queen and run the play again. Anyone who stops gets benched for the season." But nobody moved. We all stood there watching Mason convulse on the scalding turf while our coach prioritized his pride over a kid's life. That's when I made the decision that probably saved Mason and several other players. I pulled out my phone that I'd hidden in my sock and dialed 911, speaking quietly but clearly to the dispatcher. "We have multiple heat stroke victims at the high school football field. Coach is refusing to stop practice. Send ambulances immediately." Coach Brennan saw me talking and lunged for my phone, but Austin and 2 other players blocked him while I finished giving our location. The sirens arrived 12 minutes later, and paramedics rushed onto the field with cooling packs and IV bags. Mason's core temperature was 107 degrees Fahrenheit when they checked him, which the lead paramedic said was potentially fatal. They had to pack him in ice and start cooling treatments immediately. 3 other players were also treated for severe heat exhaustion, their temperatures all above 103 degrees Fahrenheit. The paramedic told Coach Brennan that another 15 minutes could have resulted in multiple deaths from hyperthermia. Coach Brennan was fired within 24 hours after the school board held an emergency meeting. The investigation revealed he'd ignored 3 separate heat advisories issued by the county health department that morning, all recommending postponing outdoor activities. His phone records showed the athletic director had called twice during practice to check if he was following heat safety protocols, but he'd let both calls go to voicemail. Parents organized protests demanding better oversight of coaching practices and mandatory heat safety training for all staff. Mason spent 5 days in intensive care as doctors worked to prevent brain damage from his heat stroke. He recovered physically, but developed lasting anxiety about physical exertion and hot weather. 2 other players quit football entirely, too traumatized by watching their teammate nearly die while their coach called it fake. The team forfeited the regional championship that Coach Brennan had been so obsessed with, as half the roster was either hospitalized or too shaken to continue playing. The new head coach they hired implemented strict heat safety protocols, including mandatory water breaks every 15 minutes when temperatures exceeded 85 degrees Fahrenheit and immediate practice cancellation above 95 degrees Fahrenheit. He told us his first day that no game or championship was worth risking a single player's life, which felt revolutionary after months of Coach Brennan's toxic mentality about toughness and sacrifice. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit when conditions are too dangerous to continue, even when someone in authority tells you to push through the pain.